Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Mike Roberts. I am the Executive Director of the British Columbia Municipal Safety Association, and I will be your host for today's session. Before we get started, we want to recognize the organizations that have supported this initiative: the BC Construction Safety Alliance, Go2HR, BC Forest Safety, Safety Driven, EggSafe, SafeCare BC, ActSafe, and the Local Government Management Association of BC. Thank you again for all your support. I wanted to provide you with a quick overview as we truly think this initiative is going to make a significant impact across the workplace landscape and is intended for all industries. The BCMSA has partnered with the Work to Wellness to create a free support toolkit geared towards mental health in the workplace during COVID-19. As you all know, COVID-19 has redefined the workplace and brought unprecedented psychological and psychosocial impacts to workers and organizations. The need for support is now. With our partner, we have delivered a multimedia interactive platform with education, tools, and resources to support the detection and efficient resolution of emerging and anticipated problems. The Psychological Support Toolkit will include a 5-part virtual summit, bringing together industry experts and creating an intimate dialogue on their recommendations in light of COVID-19. In addition, this comprehensive resource will provide information packs, checklists, access to free quality resources, recordings of a 5-part virtual summit, and access to a real cool online discussion forum where participants can network, exchange ideas, and ask questions with both peers and industry experts. As you can see, this initiative is filled with great resources. All of this could not have been possible without our partner, CEO of Work to Wellness, Diana Vissers. Diana is a workplace mental health expert who has worked in BC workplaces since 1999. She started her career supporting workers who had to leave work for health reasons, helping them navigate back to work safely. She noticed that most often workers could have stayed healthy if they and their employers knew how to recognize when a person is struggling and how to fix things early. There was a big gap between the needs of workers and the knowledge and needed support. For her master's degree in disability management, she developed education programs to address the gap. She was the first professional to talk about psychological safety in the municipal sector. Diana describes herself as a workplace mental health geek. You will notice her passion for her work as she speaks to you today and hosts the Future Summit series. Welcome, Diana.
Thank you so much, Mike. I just want to start by saying a huge welcome to all of you who are here live as we're recording this broadcast, and also to those of you who are checking in and watching this recording, whether you are connecting in your work truck on your phone or in a group at work, you're sitting together watching this video, or you're watching this in the comfort of your own home, which might also serve as your workplace. Welcome, and thank you so much for setting aside the priority and recognizing the importance of this really important topic and this amazing initiative that we have been working on to get tools into the hands of you. And so we are hoping with your participation today, we can spread the word, share these tools, learn how to use them, and we can make change in workplaces, certainly in British Columbia, but maybe elsewhere too, that we can have an impact. So thank you so much for joining us today. I want to start by talking a little bit about what today's session will be, and then I want to tell you what today's session will not be. So you're looking right now at the agenda that we have set for today. We're going to start with talking about what those psychological impacts of COVID-19 are. We're going to do a little bit of a reality check. I'm going to share some recent research and some of the observations that I've made and that others have made about what's really happening. And then we're going to do a little check-in with you on what kinds of things you're seeing. Next, we're going to talk about and show you and introduce the tools that can help keep you mentally healthy. So there's a number of tools that are going to be available to you. First, we have the mental health continuum, mental health at work continuum. We're going to show you how you could use that as part of an awareness piece. We're going to introduce some screening tools that you can take free screenings to kind of learn better where you're at. And we're going to share some wellness hacks and help you create your own recipe for mental wellness. And finally, we're going to show you how you can find help for those of you who are concerned about yourself or someone else, and you may need to connect with a mental health professional. We've got some tips to help you as well. So now for those pieces that we're not intending to cover today and what this session is not. This is not in any way a mental health treatment session. So I realize as you'll learn with some of the numbers that I'm going to talk about today, many of you are coming to this webinar perhaps feeling a sense of distress yourself or being really concerned about somebody else you work with or maybe you live with or a friend. And knowing how to connect them to the resources. I am not a mental health clinician. I am not a treatment person. My expertise is in workplace mental health and getting people connected to the right resources. But I do know about mental health treatment, and I'm going to share that information with you. So please, if you are in distress, there are some resources that are on the landing page where you logged in for this webinar and in the toolkit that you'll have access to. Please use those to get yourself connected to the right kind of support immediately. The next thing I want to talk about is how we're going to make the best of this session. And a little bit about me. COVID has really changed my work world too. So my favorite place is in a classroom, in a workplace classroom where I can connect with people and see them and talk to them. Those of you who are here today, I know many of you have had training with me or have been students of mine in the Occupational Health and Safety program. Welcome, thanks for coming. You'll know that that's kind of that's my jam, is being in the classroom. So this video connection, for me, I've learned a few tips and tricks on how I can be better for you. One of them is communicate with me. So we have this great thing called, thanks, someone's raising a hand. Thank you, that's a great communication. There's also a chat box, and let's use it today. So I do have, I can see the chats that are coming, the comments that are coming in through the chat box. I have someone helping monitor the questions so we can make sure that any of the thoughts you want to share and the comments are going to be addressed in this session or after this session. But please do that. That really helps me to know I'm hitting the mark and I'm answering any questions that you have. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So the psychological impacts of COVID-19. I don't know about you. I know for me, I've been hearing about this all over the place. I did introduce myself as a workplace mental health geek. I am. In some weird way, I'm actually excited about how much people are talking about the psychological impacts of COVID-19. What it's done is it's raised awareness of the importance of each of us, our mental health, our wellness, and how we approach every single task in our day is so tied and connected intimately with our mental health and wellness. And so it's pretty cool that today it's a Health and Safety Association that is bringing this webinar. Just think about that for a minute, that we're acknowledging that our mental health and wellness is just as important as our physical health and wellness. So in a weird way, there's some opportunities and some benefits from this. But on the other side of the equation, there's been an awful lot of not so good impacts and psychological and psychosocial impacts related to COVID-19. I've been following the research really closely, and I can tell you that my inbox is populated every day with new studies that are coming out, research showing that our world has changed and people are hurting, they're stressed, they're distressed. So this session today, the next 4 sessions that we're going to have and the toolbox that we're launching today is going to help to address those. And certainly COVID, the pandemic, has changed the way we work. It's changed the way we live. It's changed virtually everything about our world. And I want to do a little experiment just to see how much that is true. So I'd like you to use your chat box for this. I know for myself, my language has changed significantly. Not just the way that I'm choosing language around, my work, but also I have this whole new vocabulary, kind of a COVID-related dictionary. So I'd like you to think about some of the words and terms that might be new, that might have emerged that you've learned about through this whole pandemic in the last number of months. And if you could start, awesome, we got the first one, social distancing. Who knew that was a thing, right? A bubble. Yes, new concept of bubble. Wow, the chat box is exploding. Look at all these words. The time before, unprecedented times, flatten the curve, cohort. These are all new things, new norm, new normal. What's the difference between masks and respirators? The before times, I love that one. Speaking moistly, yes, I love that meme from our Prime Minister. Great. Contact tracing, awesome. So we're seeing all this language that has changed. So I want to share a few with you that I found, and just let me know if you recognize these. Rona, which was originally in the early days the short form for coronavirus. Coronageddon, definitely in this roller coaster of COVID, there have been times when it has certainly felt like Coronageddon. Quarantine, while this may actually be a little bit of a slight for some accents and the way people pronounce things, it's become part of a vernacular for quarantine. COVIDiot, not such a nice word, but the sentiment, those who are not acting appropriately, who are dismissing the concerns. Quarantine, coronavirus, I really like that one. Coronavirus, which is kind of shaming somebody for their lack of proper health and safety. Zoom bombing. Zoom, actually, I wish I bought stocks in Zoom before all this happened. Zoom meetings, online meetings, have become really a normal way of doing business. So Zoom bombing, Zoom fatigue, it's really a thing. Zoom mom, I think I qualify as a Zoom mom, someone who's just spending way too much time on Zoom. Quarantini, virtual happy hour, walktail, quarantine and chill. These are all maybe references to some of the coping mechanisms that we've developed to address how it is that we are surviving and living in this interesting time, or unprecedented time, as some of you actually said. Doom scrolling. I don't recommend doom scrolling. I do find myself doing this sometime. It's a real word now. Coronials, quarantines, corona babies. These are all new definitions, new words that are becoming part of our vernacular. COVID divorce. I have a good friend who's a divorce lawyer. His practice is thriving right now. If things weren't great before and you're forced together, it's really creating a lot of stress on relationships. Zumping, this is a new one. Apparently, those of you who are meeting new people and building new relationships, romantic relationships via Zoom because of social distancing room, you've been zumping each other, which means instead of having a face-to-face conversation, you're dumping them on Zoom. And of course, the COVID-10, which is the extra 10 pounds that many people seem to be gathering with COVID-19. And then coronacation. For those of us in British Columbia, we've been encouraged to stay home for our vacations. And so it's not as much a staycation as it is a coronacation. So these are all great examples of how so much of our world has changed. Even the language that we're using and terms we never would have thought were relevant are in our everyday language. And I could not pass up the opportunity to, of course, include a couple of images and other words and images that also create a feeling and an understanding that we all share. So many of you will recognize Nigel in that first slide, who is an American Sign Language interpreter, and he created this sign, this social distancing sign, and has been really a stalwart force for many of us when we're watching from the bottom right our updates from our wonderful provincial health officer, Bonnie Henry, and her words, be calm, be kind, be safe. These also have become part of our vernacular. The image on the bottom left, a gentleman with a laptop on his lap and he's not wearing pants. I know that I can relate. My wardrobe has changed considerably. I promise you today, I am indeed wearing pants. But, you know, I've heard from lots of people who say their, you know, their personal grooming, just how they approach their work has changed. They're wearing kind of sweatpants most of the time. They talk about their work pajamas and their home pajamas. And then, of course, the image of the coronavirus. So we can see all of these impacts. Now I'd like to check in with you. We're going to do a poll. Going to pop up on your screen. How is COVID-19 impacting me personally? And if you could respond, it'll be easy to select. When Christine gets this poll up, you just simply select the number that you're associating with really well. And if you could launch that, Christine, and then if you could select, and we will tally the results. And it'd be really interesting to see, how is COVID-19 impacting me personally on a personal level? Numbers are coming in. Looking great. Thank you, everybody. Wow, what a great, eager group. So nice to see all the engagement. Some of you have put your answers in. I'm also getting some comments in the chat box about some other personal impacts, what those kind of impacts are. There's difficulties in all kinds of areas of our life. Somebody's having difficulty selling their home. Yeah, real estate's changed. People's whole approach to our economy has changed. Lots of different things. So let's show those results. I think this will be very interesting. And it kind of matches with what I'm going to reveal next. We'll see those results in a second. Is it launched?
The next poll?
Nope. Can you see it? Can everyone see this? Okay, everyone can see the results now. So it should be popping up on your screen there. So 56% are saying significant impact, 13% huge impact, 31% small impact. So we're still looking at, 69% of us here today in this session have a significant or a huge impact. Those are pretty big numbers. So that's just on a personal level. So I'm seeing somebody is saying there's no results. They're not seeing them. Maybe they are now. Okay, someone's raised a hand. Maybe Christine, I'll let you respond to that. There's a couple of raised hands. Not seeing the results. Okay, well, I'll give you the results verbally. So we're seeing, as I said, 69% of people are seeing significant impact or huge impact. Some people are seeing them, so I'm not sure. There's some technical glitches. I will read the poll results out loud. Okay, so that gives us a flavor of COVID-19 and how it's impacting us personally. So here's what some of the research is showing us. It used to be, in the time before, as someone so nicely used that phrase in the chat box earlier, we used to think about the incidences of workplace mental health and those in the workplace who are needing help and support about 1 in 5 or 20%. Now it's actually closer to 1 in 2, and there's a range of studies, but most of them are landing somewhere between 40 and 65%, depending on the group that's being measured. So if you think about that, wow, that is a huge difference. So the actual mental health distress in people and those feeling the anxiety, increased anxiety, and recognizing that they're needing to do something different is half or more than half. That's pretty high. We also know that alcohol consumption has gone up. By some of our informal research here in British Columbia talked about 40%, that there were 40% sales increases, which is astronomical number if you think in terms of alcohol consumption, what that says about Doesn't mean every person is drinking 40% more, but if that many more sales are happening, we know the numbers are high. I know for myself, sometimes when I bring my recycling, I have to look and notice, yeah, you know what? I think that I probably also have been consuming a little bit more. This is just a sign, right, of our behaviors and how we're responding to what's going on. One study showed 30% of the participants of the study, and this was a particular age group, reported binge drinking within 7 days of the study that was contributed to COVID-19 stressors. That is a huge number. Binge drinking is a very serious scenario. It's a behavior that really needs addressing, and it's responding to what's going on with COVID-19. There's lots of other results that I'm not sharing here, just in the interest of moving forward in time. Our opioid crisis, my heart bleeds for so many families and you know, people who are really showing this in a different way. Our numbers keep skyrocketing. I know my circle has been touched by that. I have a friend who's lost a son in the opioid crisis. This is we really need to pay attention. So COVID-19 is impacting individuals, everyone in some way, even those who are mentally healthy and well. But we also know that it's having more serious impacts on women, on primary caregivers, so those who have a caregiving role, particularly those who are also working, young workers in the lower demographics who tend to have the public-facing jobs or whose jobs might have been more vulnerable during the economic shutdown, those with existing and or mental health issues. You know, we know for sure in the mental health world that those who were managing okay and that had resources and tools, but perhaps are living with a mental illness, are now needing different support, more support. You know, employers are reaching out saying, you know, we have people who have been doing okay and now suddenly they're not okay. How do we get them help? Immigrants, low-income families, those with unsafe work or living arrangements. So all of that, these are the groups, those of you who are watching, if you or someone in your purview fits this criteria, more support is needed, even more important. We can expect that the distress levels are going to be higher in those groups. We have a question.
Diana, we have a question here. Somebody is asking, have you seen an increase of workplace violence associated to COVID?
This is a great question. So we know anecdotally that we are hearing a lot of incidences of distressed people being either the workers in the workplace whose co-workers, they're having distress and conflict, but also people coming into work environments. And I'm just thinking about some news stories that we had here in British Columbia, some assaults that were happening on an ethnic population that we were seeing evidence of. Those were work environments. We have not been able to gather complete numbers from BC, what's been happening in terms of violence, but we know incidentally, yes, there are many more distressed people. This is leading to some troubling encounters. And so that's part of what our series is going to be addressing too. Thank you for the question. So the next slide, I don't want you to get into the weeds on this slide. There's a lot of information here, but what this slide really shows is the people in the light green were reporting that they had excellent or very good mental health, and the people in the blue were reporting good, fair, or poor mental health. And these are the differences in the concerns these individuals raised over those issues that are across the bottom of the screen: the family stress, ability to cooperate during crisis, maintaining social ties. These are the concerns that people were sharing. So even those of us with good and excellent mental health, we still have concerns. So this gives us even more reason why we need the tools that we're delivering today. So now I want you to switch your brain into work and think about your work environment. We're going to launch another poll. Christina's going to launch it now. On a scale of 1 to 5, rate your level of work stress. That poll should be popping up now. If you could just start, oh good, people are jumping in. That's awesome. You're quick learners and a very engaged group. So while you're doing that poll, I just want to give you a quick peek. So this is actually a copy of the toolkit that I'm introducing components of through this session this morning. It has just been uploaded onto BCMSA, so you can go and download this either after the session or at your leisure, and it will contain images and content that I'm discussing today. So I see a question, could we have copies of the slides? This recording will be viewable. It will be edited and then put on the website. You can go back and see it as many times as you like. You can also find much of the information in this guide. Okay, so let's show the results, end the polling and show the results. So okay, you're viewing it. So you see here, only 3% are not seeing a lot of work stress. 38% are showing really high work stress. So this is very interesting. Thank you, Christine. To me, when I'm bringing you the next slide. So very recent research, kind of hot off the press, is saying that nearly 7 out of 10 workers are indicating that this pandemic is the most stressful time of their career or their workplace. Just think about that. 70% of people out there working, this is the most stressful time of their entire career. So all the more reason why we need to be learning these new tools and unraveling the toolkit piece by piece, introducing it to you today. So now I'm going to talk to you about what the toolkit actually contains, and we're going to go through it piece by piece. So you can feel free to be asking questions in the chat box. I'm doing my best to observe those and still stay on target with the content today. But now we'll just introduce what the actual toolkit includes. So it is a downloadable by PDF. It's very easy to read content, lots of visual stuff. You'll see a nice welcome message from me, and then the contents are on the inside. And there's basically 4 areas of content that I'm going to go through with you today. So the first is an awareness check. So what is it? How do you actually know how you're doing? This is a really important piece and element to responding to our mental health and wellness needs and being healthier, is we've got to kind of know how we're doing in the first place. The next piece is the calming, so that we know from research, and we've put together some very simple exercises that we know work to calm our nervous systems down, which are really involved in feelings of angst and anxiety and stress. And so these activities will help you help your body and your mind really calm down and settle. The third part is about developing your recipe for mental wellness. And I will take you through an activity. We won't have time to do the activity today, but it's in the guide and there's a step-by-step instruction. And then finally, building support for yourself at work and home. One of the most important things is recognizing, if you're aware of where your needs are, building the support that you actually need, which is going to be unique to you, and helping you. It's a tool and a checklist to help you do that really well. So now we're going to start with the awareness check, and we're going to start with, I said I was a workplace mental health geek. I really mean it. I actually carry this around with me, this mental health continuum card. This image comes to us through the Mental Health Commission of Canada. There's many iterations of it, but they work together with some of the Department of Defense. Originally, it was designed, this concept was designed to help veterans understand, those who were experiencing PTSD and trauma, really poor mental health, as a way of helping them look at their mental health instead of as a, I'm really sick or I'm really well. Look at it on a continuum and recognize that we actually experience thoughts, moods, and behaviors along this continuum, and it changes constantly, like it's a fluctuating thing, right? and things that happen in our world, that happen in our life, can affect where we might see ourselves on this continuum. And there's absolutely things that we can do to help push ourselves towards the green, towards the left side of the continuum. So this guide will take you through a couple of activities that's going to help you to do this. So page 9 of the guide will do that. So, you know, one of the things that I really like about this tool is that it's good and it's useful as a personal check-in. So I actually, in some of my circles or in groups where I've done, you know, workplaces where I've spent some time talking about this tool and introducing it, people will use this language and say, you know, hey, today I'm kind of orange today. I really am kind of orange. And other people in the workplace know what that means. And so that's a way of getting support and understanding. So that's one way. The other really useful piece about this tool is it sometimes gives us clues to what others might be experiencing. So if you look carefully at the items that are identified in each of these categories, you'll notice particularly behaviors that you might be seeing in someone else, that you might think, oh, that person's just a jerk, or, you know, that person's not very nice. But this allows, well, it certainly allows me, and I would invite you to use this lens as well, allows me to wonder and be curious if there might actually be something else going on for that person. I do not advise that you use this on any of your family members. I have tried that before and it did not go well. It is not a diagnostic tool to show someone else, hey, I think you're red or I think you're orange, but it's good for us to just build compassion and understanding for another person that there could be something that they're needing help and support for. So I hope you love this tool as much as I do. There's a version in the toolkit for you. And I even actually, I will confess, I even have a mouse for my computer at home that I've printed this image on. I just love it so much. All of the other sections that we will have, part 2, part 3, part 4, have corresponding continuum images that we've put different content in it to be instructive as well. So this is a theme you'll see. So awesome. And I would welcome any thumbs up or thoughts in the chat box about what you actually think about this. And if this is something that you could use, that you could use to measure and consider your own mental health. So the other check-in and awareness piece that's built into the toolkit, awesome, thank you for the great comments. It's like high fives. Screening tools. So screening tools are just so useful. You know, 10 years ago, screening tools were left in the offices of doctors, of psychologists, of psychiatrists, of social workers. Now we have access to them so we can use them to check in on ourselves. And it might feel a bit intimidating to actually do a check-in and do a screening tool. The resources that we've put inside this toolbox are super easy to use. I actually went in preparation for today, and I took a series of screening tools from Here to Help BC. Took me less than 5 minutes, start to finish, and I got great information back with instructions. How can I, what kinds of things might I need to look for? Am I doing okay? Do I meet any criteria for depression or anxiety? Should I see my doctor, find a mental health professional? And just some good tips for me. Literally minutes. It's completely confidential. It's a great way to do a check-in for yourself. So you'll find those screening tools. I invite you to them. So before we get into the next piece, we have a question.
Yeah. It was a really great comment here. And what they're saying is, I think it would work best for workers with ways of how to get help, how to help yourself or someone else if you recognize their state. It's great to know where you or someone else is, but what then?
Yeah, so great. I think all of you could hear Christine. So we're going to talk about how to get help. That's coming. Great question. Yeah, so being aware and knowing where you are is step one. The screening tools that I introduced on the last slide and that you have links to in the PDF of our toolkit also give you advice and suggestions for how to access help and support. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on. So before we get into part 2, which is about calm yourself, I just want to share with you this definition, which for me, can I just clarify, are we seeing the wellness definition?
I'm seeing the toolkit.
Okay, sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. Thanks for your patience. So wellness is the active pursuit of activities, choices, and lifestyles that lead to a state of holistic health. I love this definition because what you'll notice is it's active. So sometimes some of the activities I'm going to introduce next, I hear from people, workers, who say to me, yeah, whatever, it's hooey, or I don't need it, I'm fine. Wellness is an active pursuit. That means we need to be paying attention to what's happening, making choices about how we address it, and actually do the things that we're learning about. So this leads really nicely into the next piece, which is calm yourself by breathing and meditation. Now, I was a reluctant participant, and I was reluctant to actually dive in and really start working with meditation and box breathing both. I can tell you that box breathing is a super easy skill to learn, and it is something that you can do within 2 or 3 minutes, and it literally calms you right down. In fact, prepping for today, I was so excited about everybody who's joining us today and about the launch of this project. I had a little trouble sleeping, and at 4 o'clock in the morning, when I woke up ready to go for the day, I did some box breathing. I don't remember getting past my 3rd breathing. It put me right back to sleep. This stuff works. We know from science it calms you down. So there's some instructions in the toolkit and some links to progressive relaxation activity and meditation guides, and a grounding activity that is really useful in times when you're feeling really distressed and kind of almost out of yourself. Like, I have certainly felt that way, that I'm so stressed that I can't think properly about what's happening. And so grounding, you can just start a grounding practice, and then I'm going to look around and I'm going to find 5 things right in my surrounding that I can see and name them. And then 4 things that I'm feeling, like the temperature on my skin, like my jacket. And then 3 things that I can hear right now. And that takes my brain back to what I'm sensing and being present, instead of, in that really heightened state of anxiety. Someone put a comment in there, it lowers blood pressure. It absolutely does. Box breathing is it is a marvel. This is a glorious thing. Once you learn how to do it, I hope you'll continue to do it really regularly. I know people who do it while they're driving sometimes too. Okay, so those are the calming things. Now I want to talk about the recipe for mental wellness. This is some real meat and potatoes of the toolkit. If you want to think about it, like we have appetizers and dessert, this is the meat and potatoes. So this recipe for mental wellness comes to us. Can I just confirm you're seeing the mental wellness, the wheel?
Yeah.
Okay, good, thank you. So you can see here the wellness wheel. And I like to think about every person having a unique recipe of what constitutes for them good health, a good sense of wellness and mental health. And so you see in this image all these different names of elements that kind of make up a whole person. And so all these different elements and aspects require different amounts for each person in order for that person to really feel healthy and well. So I'll give you a couple of examples, and then I'm going to introduce the activity that's in the toolkit that I would encourage you to do and in the privacy of your own home, or do it with a friend or a partner, or maybe as a working activity you can do in one of your Zoom meetings. Really good way of envisioning how you're actually doing. Particularly useful because in the time of this pandemic, many of those pieces of the recipe, the ways that we've been coping and managing and staying really vibrant and healthy and well, they're gone, right? So I'll give you a couple of examples. For myself, there's a few of these in the wellness wheel that really stand out for me as being bigger pieces. One of them is the spiritual one. And to me, this is not religion. It may be for some of you, but this for me is about a sense of meaning and purpose. If your work has been interrupted or changed, or maybe even your job is gone, your sense of purpose and meaning is going to be significantly impacted, as well as some other things. Probably there'll be some financial impacts and some other things as well. So for me, when COVID-19 first came, it completely changed my work. In fact, my work went away in 2 days. All of my work plans for the next 3 months were completely done because I did all my meeting in workplaces and I couldn't go there anymore. And I found myself looking back to this wellness wheel and going, hey, my sense of meaning and purpose really seems to be missing. And that for me is a big important part of my wellness wheel. This probably is about 40% for me of where I see my whole wellness. And so I had to work really hard to figure out how am I going to put those pieces back in. You know, another element for me is physical exercise. Very important for me to stay super healthy with the heavy content that I deal in day to day with work, you know, supporting people, really intense work. Physical activity changed. My gym doors closed and now, you know, I'm not feeling very safe to go there. So I have to take a structured approach to really know how do I put that back in? I have to be really creative, right? I had this little center set up in my house where I had a yoga mat that I could put away and had some free yoga stuff, and everybody has their own. So I would encourage you to take some time with this. Really think about how each of these elements are, how much of your wellness wheel do they take up? Be honest about your reflection and the score you're giving it. You know, I want to say with the physical, today I can tell you my physical activity level is great. It has been over the last month, fantastic. I'm pretty sure as the rain sets in, our rainy season, that might change for me. I'm not done. I need to keep going back to this recipe. And there's some tips in there about how to just create some very simple instructions for yourself on filling in those details. And if you find yourself a bit stuck, like you can't solve it, you know, your thoughts are not letting you create and imagine new ways of filling a need, talk to somebody about it. Maybe you talk to a friend or a colleague. You might also consider talking to a counselor or a mental health professional. This is a great way to have a conversation with somebody to get you support so that you know, you can build your circle in an awesome way. Your wellness wheel will be robust, even in these times of change. And I just want to point you as a segue to the bottom one, which is social, because that brings us right to our last element that we're going to talk about today, and that's building support at work and home. There is tons of research showing that people who have good support networks do way better during times of stress. Even now, there's specific research coming out about COVID-19, even some of those groups that we talked about earlier, where there's particular risks. Those who are saying, I have a good support network, they're doing okay. So how do you actually build your support network? If you either have support or you don't know how to build that support, that can be difficult. So we have laid out, there's a worksheet in the toolkit that will guide you through some thinking, some reflection for yourself, maybe questions that you can have a conversation with somebody about and get some help on knowing how you can build support. So here's a sneak peek at some of the questions that are there. And I would just also highlight that support doesn't necessarily mean somebody to you know, listen and understand you and somebody to talk to. While that, of course, is important, we all need to feel heard and seen and understood and cared about, but it can also be really practical things, right? So I'm thinking in terms of work support, it can be really hard to ask specifically for work support. So for example, I have a grown-up son who's in a fairly new job. He started a job during COVID. Wow. My hat's off to any of you who have started a new career or new job during COVID. And we had a conversation together where he was sharing with me some of the supports that he was feeling was missing in this way where he was connecting in this new work team and he wasn't physically in space with anyone. So some of the incidental support that would be there if they were sharing the work environment wasn't there. And I talked him through, how do you actually recognize and identify what kinds of supports you need, and then how do you actually ask for them? And so he did. He went to his boss and he said, hey, you know, I haven't done this kind of working before. It would be really helpful for me if we had a weekly check-in, just you and me, and even 10 minutes to review what I've done for the week and let me know if I'm on the right track. And it made all the difference for him. So there's some tools to build your support network that are there as well. Okay, so that's the 4 elements of the toolkit that for each individual can give you individual skills, knowledge, an ability to kind of know what actions you can take. And if you remember, wellness requires action, choices, behaviors, learning, all of those are contained in the toolkit. But we also added another piece. So if you are finding yourself through perhaps the assessment process, you know, checking in with how you're doing, or even maybe doing the wellness wheel, you realize you're kind of out of whack and you need some support and help in putting that into practice, we put some information in this toolkit I think you're going to find really useful. First of all, we have a page devoted to what kind of mental health professionals are out there. So for those of you who don't work in mental health, or maybe you don't have experience, you may not know, you know, what's the difference between a social worker and a psychologist and a psychiatrist, and who is it that I should talk to first about my mental health care. So we've included some guidelines, some brief introduction and instruction about that. And then we've also included how to find the right mental health professional for you and some selection tips. You know, I know because I work in this field, you can actually interview a mental health professional to find out if they're going to be a good fit for you. Many of them will agree to have a quick phone call with you. You can ask them questions about maybe their, you know, the way that they do their practice, what are their beliefs about people, how long is it going to take me to get better, what kinds of things are you going to do to me or say to me, what's going to happen when we're together in session, who's going to find out what we talk about. All these are great questions, and questions you absolutely can ask a mental health professional before making a selection. And then once you do make a selection of a mental health professional and you engage with that person, you have some time with that person, you know, we don't always find the right fit the first time. Please don't give up. First of all, I would suggest that you tell the person that they're not meeting your needs. It's okay. They will not feel forever wounded by your comment. They're professionals, and they also want you to have the best connection you can. They might be able to recommend a colleague or someone different. So you can describe to that person and say, hey, you know what? This wasn't what I thought. I thought I was going to get this. And then they could say, oh, well, I don't do that work, but I know somebody who can. Or, you know, if you're accessing an employee assistance program counselor and you just don't feel they're getting you, maybe let them know and ask if you could see someone else. So these things are all possible. It's just most important that you, the person at the center, is finding exactly what you need from those services. So, and then there's some tips on how to prepare when you're ready now to have that first session. And this slide says it all. I think first of all is prepare to be honest. You really need to be honest about why you're needing help. We have a thing in mental health we call the doorknob syndrome, where you know someone has been in a session for almost an hour and they get up to leave, and as they're at the door leaving, they say, oh, by the way, and they say the real reason they came. It can be really hard sometimes to admit what's going on for us, or maybe we're a little frightened about what it's going to mean if somebody else is in. But that mental health professional, they're there to actually help you through it. So be prepared to be honest about what's going on. The more you can tell that person about how you are going to be helped, the better. Think about the goal or what you want to change. If you can articulate that really well, that is going to help your mental health professional. If you can say, you know, I'm not sleeping well, I find myself getting really stressed out, I want that to change. That person can start asking questions of you. That's going to lead them to help you know how to be healthier and be better. So these are just some additional tips that we've included in the guide. I think you probably can all tell, I'm so excited about this tool. I just feel like this toolkit has so much practical information that's going to help you and those who you might share the toolkit with. Please share it widely, that it's going to get this information in the hands of those who need it so they can make a difference. And we can really start, you know, we have to think about the mental health curve too. We've been very focused on the COVID infection code, but we have to also think about the mental health curve that we are already seeing evidence of spiking. So this is one great way. So I'd like to end with a little bit of a reflection and a couple more polls. Christine, if you're ready to engage this, we'll do the first one. So how likely are you to use one or more of these tools introduced today? Please just pick one, and we'll launch that poll in a second. Thanks. I see we have everybody still so engaged. That's great. Awesome. Okay. Just a couple more stragglers. Great. I think that's probably pretty good, Christine. So this is awesome. I am so excited. So I'm doing quick math under pressure in my head. So we are 82% of those of you participating are very likely or likely to be using these tools. That is music to my ears, and to everybody who has worked so hard on this project, to BC Municipal Safety Association, WorkSafe BC, who funded this with a grant, those other safety associations who have really gotten behind this. Fantastic. So I'd like to ask one more question for those of you here, and don't go away, because we do have a few minutes for questions, and I want to talk about what comes next. So the next question: how likely are you to share the information you learned today with a friend or a colleague? And I would say I would encourage you to do that, because we want this word getting out. This video will be available. The toolkit is available for free. We want our website to crash because everybody wants a copy. So please share it. So can we go ahead and launch that poll, or sorry, end the polling? Got about 6 minutes left today. So again, pretty high endorsement here. We're just below 80% likely or very likely. That is really great. So we do have a few minutes for questions. I have one from Christine.
Let me just bring it up here. So we had one question about the wellness wheel. Somebody was looking for anywhere that outlines or gives examples of what to think of during each aspect of the wellness wheel for consistency and better understanding.
Okay, so the toolkit does explain in more detail. So if you download the toolkit, you may find those examples here. Okay, someone's saying you can't hear the question. So I will repeat the question. So the question is, with the wellness wheel, which is here on this page, is there somewhere we can go for more examples of what these might look like specific examples of what might be social? And there are some clues in here in the guide to help guide you, and some questions to guide your reflection. So hopefully that will be enough. And my other suggestion would be talk with people in your purview, like your circle, maybe is a friend who you are quite close to, or a family member that can help you solve that, or talk to a counselor. If you have access to a mental health counselor, they can help you as well. So that is a great question. And there's also in the resources section, which is the final page, the second final page in the toolkit, we do offer some options for a deeper dive. So you can take an education program. So we do education programs in workplaces where we actually do this activity, this wellness wheel, together collectively in a group in a workplace, so people can even support each other and help each other know how to stay healthy and well. Awesome question.
Yeah, so we have another really great question here. as a manager, how would you recommend this be rolled out to staff, and how should we follow up?
Oh, great question. So first of all, as a manager, I hope, I'm just going to put this slide up. I hope that you will also attend, of course, all of them, but part 4, which is specifically support for managers and leaders, how to respond to your team's psychological needs during COVID-19. In that session, we will have Sun Life's workplace mental health expert and psychologist joining us there to help answer that question for you. In terms of the toolkit, I think there's lots of options for how you might share this with your team. Things you could as simply as send a link to everybody and say, hey, download this, this is great. I'd get really giddy and excited if I heard you had team meetings revolved around this, very respectfully, of course, and cautiously, not requiring that people give personal information, but a chance together to say, you know, we value everyone's wellness. Let's help and support each other, or maybe a way to even offer as a team, how do we support each other through this? Maybe there's some initiatives we can do together as a team that's going to help, right? I know one workplace, they had team exercise on Zoom. People were finding it really hard in their remote work environments to get their exercise in. So they actually had team meetings where they had 20 minutes of physical activity, and then they dove into the content. So there's all kinds of creative ways that you can do it. I think the most important thing is that you do it, that you get people access to the toolkit and to these tools. We're coming to an end of the session today. Wow, didn't that just fly by? So I want to just tell you, those of you who have questions, our chat box literally has exploded, which is fantastic. We thought that this discussion might need a place to live after our session is over today. So we've created a discussion forum that is available on the landing page at the BC Municipal Safety Association website, the same place you registered for this and you came into the session for, and we're going to continue that discussion going. So please, we will take the questions that are from the chat box. So if you have other questions, put them in the chat box. We will populate the discussion. Dynamic and excited, passionate person. The conversation is going to be quite great. Part 4 I've already talked about, and then part 5 at the end, we don't know what it's going to look like by the end of October. And so we're going to, closer to the end of October, dialogue together with industry leaders in some of the industries maybe where you work, and find out how have the impacts been managed and dealt with, what's been happening for you. So with that, I will wrap up. I want to give you a real heartfelt thank you for coming today, to taking the time, recognizing the priority and the importance of your own mental health and wellness. And please share this with anybody else you know who might benefit from it. This has been a very exciting opportunity, and I really hope that you took some nugget away with you, a tool that you can use, a new idea, a thought, and it can be the start of something better. Thank you all for being here today.